In this session, we're going to review completing units using the Android tablet by a crew foreman in the field. And we're going to do this in conjunction with time entry. Using a Android emulator on my PC of a Samsung tablet in a landscaped view. Go ahead and log in. When we log in, the foreman can see their jobs, and then we can put other documents out here, spec documents, reference documents, anything that the work group wants to make available at the fingertips of the foreman. Go back to my jobs. And this shows all of the active jobs. It shows pending start jobs that have been assigned to this foreman. If jobs for this foreman have been put on hold, there'd be another tab here for hold. There's numerous reports available up here. And we can go ahead and add jobs. If there's a job that we're called and said, hey, Joe, go start this job. It's not been assigned to him. He can assign it to himself and go. We're going to focus on this job here. If you long hold, it brings up just some information about the job. So this shows our basic information about the job. We have documents that have been loaded in against the job, and we have reports that are associated with the job. We just single click on this, it opens up the job, and it shows our job days. We're still working on last week, and we're going to do time entry associated with 12/7. When this first opens, it opens up to the crew that was associated with this crew foreman yesterday. So in here, the task is to validate that this is the crew for today. I can add crew members, or I can modify my crew members, change their classifications, inactivate them. If you inactivate them, you have to give a reason. I also have my equipment from yesterday. Validate this equipment is correct. Again, add equipment, modify equipment. Once I have this done, I'm ready to go into my complete work. So I just take the next step in the process. And this is going to open up my complete work transaction where I see my uncompleted locations. If I load all locations, it'll show me the completed ones also, but we're just trying to keep this as fast and simple as possible. So we're going to complete these 3 locations today. Click on that and it opens up the details. You can see that we have some location or some items that have already been completed. These are associated with non-billable items, so we go ahead and complete those automatically up front. And here we go. We simply click on it. It will complete the item. And we now show 2 complete, 0 remaining. If we want to partially complete something with more or less, just long hold on that. Brings up a window and we can complete 0, 2, whatever's appropriate. Give comments for change orders. We're just going to go ahead and complete these. You can see as we complete them, our percent complete of that location is updating. In our next revision of complete work, we'll have a little button up here so that you can just check these off and then process them all at one time rather than having to go through this processing time with each unit. A challenge we have with Encore is that they have the work groups completing units at a component unit level. Encore is the only owner that we work with that does that. Generally they do it at a macro unit level, which then has these component units embedded underneath of them. And when you complete a macro unit, you complete all of the embedded component units if that's what you're trying to do. Or you can go in and do them one at a time. Here's our wire, 420 feet. That was a removal. And we go on to our next location. And we complete that wire. And at this point in time, we've completed all the units in the system that are completed in the field. And we go into our process next. And now what we're doing is we're taking and creating a generic timesheet. This is going to be generic for the crew. And our task is we did units work. And we're going to go ahead and put that we worked on that for 5 hours. Okay. And we go next. And we can put our comments here if we desire. Not required to do that. So there's 5 hours of straight time. We're going to go ahead and add another task. And we're going to choose our task. And it's a work group task. And it's going to be a meals. And it automatically puts it a half hour for a meal. And next. So that test that out. We could put comments in there if we needed to. So that goes as non-compensated time over here. Now we want to finish out our day. Choose our units task again. And put the balance of our 5 hours in. And for Wilbros, we could go ahead and automate this process to bring in all 3 tasks initially, if this is consistently how it's performed. Again, Encore is the only owner that we work with that requires that the day be broken up like this with a meal section. So to streamline this, we would automate a little wizard that would go ahead and break this up like this initially. So this is generic time. It's not for any individual. It's just for the average crew. When we go next here, it's going to take this time. It's going to parse it to each individual that was assigned in that beginning of the day process and to all the equipment. So here's our people. So you can see that what they're getting for per diems, their straight time, their overtime, and their total for the day. We can go ahead and modify any of this information. We can inactivate the person, or if somebody was added during the day we missed in the morning, we can add people here. Once we're satisfied with our labor, here's our equipment. Same thing, we can modify our equipment. We can inactivate the equipment. We can add equipment. This is our summary. It shows what we have for the day and for the week for that individual. This is weekly information. Is not limited to just this job. It's all jobs for that individual for the week. Same thing for our equipment. Here we are for this. We have several reports we can run. Let's go ahead and look at the job day crew timesheet. That's a popular report. There's a heading up there. I'll have to fix that. So here's the data. And we can see that blow this up a little bit more. In a regular Android device, you can use your finger squeeze to see this, but we can see their start and end times. We can see the comments down here. We show, again, their hours. Here we're only showing whether they get per diem or they don't. No need for owners or who might see this report to see what those values are. Here's our equipment. And in this report here, we show our completed units information. And obviously the stuff that are change orders shows in red or green, depending on whether we've added units or removed units. We can email this thing, or we can print it if we have a Bluetooth printer. So we'll go back to our item here and mark complete. And that's now submitted it. So we now look back at our jobs and we can see we have submitted that as a foreman. Once these are approved, they'll disappear from the list. Again, we do everything possible to keep the Android app data listing as minimal as possible for speed. All the reports that were available at the end of the day are available here. So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at what the project manager or the approved reviewer will see. So we'll minimize this application. And if I go refresh my data here, because I had this open while we did that, we can go to our time review, and here's this job for this foreman, and it's been submitted. So I have a time review action. can come in here and see these folks. I can see how their time was split up. I can see what their time for the day and for the week is. If I'm satisfied with this, I'm good. Otherwise, I can modify it. Go next. Here we go again with our equipment. We modify it. Again, I should point out we can, delete it by zeroing it out. We've got a zero out time here. Or if we do it in error, we can reset it back to the crew. If I go back to the crew here, we have those same features. And then we can add crew members here again if we know that someone was missed. So we'll either be able to reject this and send it back to the foreman to correct it, or the PM can correct it right here. But you note the approve and reject buttons are grayed out down here, and that requires that the PM go through the process and get to this summary page where he can see or she can see where we are. So again, for the day, the per diems, the straight time, the weekly totals. If we want to see a summary for any of these individuals, we can click on this. Opens up a mini timesheet for the week. Quick review. If there was multiple jobs in a day, there would be a plus button here that we could open that up and take a look at the various jobs in that day. Same thing exists for the equipment. Here's our issues and comments down here. And again, if the PM or the reviewer wants to go ahead and help out, put some comments in there, they can certainly do so. So once they're satisfied with this, they can approve and close this. If there were any other time that is required to be approved by this individual, there would also be a button down here that says approve and next if you want to go to that. Just keep it nice and easy. So there we go. We're approving this. So what that just did is made that information available to payroll in our payroll modules, and it updated the accrued cost for the job. So now the accrued costs are consistent with what we've got into UnitsPro for that information. If we want to see that, see if I can go into a person who has access to those type of reports. Here's a contract manager, and in their reports they have some additional information that a project manager may or may not have, depending on what they want. So here's a job summary report with costs. Go take a look at that. Here we can control what status of jobs we're looking at. So this is very poor set of data. It's just sample data that I've got in here for some Wilbro demonstrations. But it does indicate for our in-process jobs, what our plan is, what we've earned, what our costs are, what our profits, the overhead, and the net profit. We've got these little buttons up here. If we want to see some more information, this shows our percentages. Same thing with the costs. We can blow those up. And it breaks up our cost by labor, equipment, material, and subcontracts. And let's close these down. And on billings, it shows us a little more information on billings, on what our underbills are, what's been paid, and what's outstanding. So an awful lot of information is available in UnitsPro to help manage the entire life cycle process, getting these things billed, easy for management to see what's earned, what our costs, what our profitability is. But again, be cautious. These costs are accrued costs. They're not actual costs. UnitsPro is not a cost accounting system, but we do use it as accruals. And when we interface with a lot of cost accounting systems, often they only use our accrual numbers, and then they do a balance at a general ledger level, and that's a topic for much further discussion if desired. So we're going to go back to that project manager for just a second, and I want to go into that job and look at a couple of other reports. So here's that job. Let's go into there. Let's go into the complete work. Any of the reports that we're showing here can also be set up as subscriptions so that the reports are automatically delivered via email or into some standard file location as desired. So the report's available here, also available on the dashboard. So we want to take a look at that active job takeoff. Again, here we are showing the plus and minuses on the job. And so this is ostensibly your as-built documentation. And if we go into our schedule, we can see what we've earned here. If we show our incurred, we can see what our costs are. Reports. We can look at our cash flow, a phase completion comparison, which is not real useful for distribution, but is very useful for transmission and substation work. And then that project work down curve again. So we take a look at this, and we can see that after the first week, we're slightly ahead of schedule, and we're on track to finish on target.